Hello and welcome. My name is Robin, and in today's Code Jumper lesson, we will be learning about debugging. So let's jump in and learn more about what debugging is. So we'll start out with our vocabulary. But before we get into that, I would like to make sure everybody has their computer science journal out. So if you remember, the computer science journal can be in any format, whether that is a document on your computer, a piece of paper, use your Braille writer or a note taker. You can even use the same piece of paper you used last time in other lessons. So once you have your computer science journal ready to go, we will talk about vocabulary. So pause the video, make sure your computer science journal is ready to go, and then press play again once you're ready. Okay, so let's dive into our vocabulary. So this lesson is about debugging. Well, what does that mean? So our first vocabulary word is a bug. We all know what a bug is. It's a creepy crawler critter, all that's walking around on the ground or flying in the air. In computer science, it actually means something different. A bug is an error or problem within a computer program. So how do we get rid of this bug? Well, we need to debug. So debugging is the process of finding and fixing bugs or errors in computer programs. So who's going to do this fixing? These are the software engineers. Engineers who write the computer programs for different types of software also are the ones who will go back and fix the problems. So they will find the problem or bug, debug it, which is fixing the problem, and then make sure it works. So again, our three vocabulary words are bug, debugging, and software engineer. Well, let's talk about a really important computer scientist who was a pioneer in her field. Her name is Grace Hopper. She was a Rear Admiral in the U.S. Navy. She was born December 9th, 1902. And died January 1st, 1992. That's 91 years old. And in her 91 years, she did a lot of things for computer science. So she started out as a college student studying math at Vassar University. She became a professor or a teacher at the university, and then went back and got more schooling. She got more master's degrees and a PhD in mathematics. And when World War II happened, she signed up for the Waves, which was a group for women in the military. And she was part of the Naval Reserve. So that means that when the Navy needed her help, they would call her up. So she was sent to work on the Mark I, which is a computer that was based at Harvard University. So let's talk a little bit about the Mark I. So on the screen, I have a photograph of the Mark I computer. So we think of computers as sitting on our desk. We can even hold it in our hand if we're using a phone. They're light, they're portable. But back in the 1940s, computers were huge. It took up an entire room. So think about the cafeteria at your school, your classroom, or even your gymnasium. That's how big the rooms needed to be to house this computer. It needed to sit on the floor, and it would go all the way up almost to the ceiling. So in the picture, we have the Mark I going all the way across the wall in this room. There's all sorts of tubes and dials and wires, even pieces of paper. And standing in front of the computer are three computer scientists, and they are only covering one section of the computer because it is so large. So she worked on this Mark I computer, but then she also worked on the Mark II computer. So we have a picture of Grace Hopper sitting in front of the console or the control panel for the Mark II computer. It has a keyboard and all sorts of dials and knobs and buttons, and even a place for paper. And Grace Hopper is holding computer printout paper with data on that. And surrounding her are three other computer scientists. And she is the only woman computer scientist in this picture. The Mark II was also a very large computer. When Grace Hopper was working on the computer one day, they noticed that it was having a glitch. So a glitch is when something is not quite working. So they needed to figure out what the problem was. So they went and dug into the computer, literally looking inside the computer to see what the problem was. And what Grace Hopper found was that there was a moth, a real life bug inside the computer. And remember, the computers back then actually used cards, paper, with holes punched in them, kind of like a braille paper with all of our dots punched in them. And the moth was probably having a nice snack on the paper. So to fix the problem, Grace Hopper had to take the moth out of the computer. So hence the term debugging. So found the problem, which was the bug, and had to debug it by removing the moth. And those terms have stuck, which is why we now call an error in a computer program a bug. And when we fix it, is called debugging. And when Grace Hopper was asked when she was much older what her biggest accomplishment of her life was, she said all the young people that she has trained in computer science. All right, so I have a new slide up, and this is our thinking question. So our thinking question is, think of times when you have had to debug a problem, and what did you do for the solution? So your bug is your problem, and debugging is how did you fix it? So get your computer science journal, answer the question, and then we'll reconvene afterwards. So press pause, answer the question, and then come back once you're done. All right, great. So hopefully you have answered your question, and now we're ready to move on creating our own program and seeing what we need to debug that. So for today, the parts of CodeJumper that you are going to need is your hub. So if you remember, your hub is the largest component of CodeJumper. It's where we have our play button, it's where we have our stop button, the sound can come out of it, and it has the rocker switch to turn it on. So go ahead and get out your hub, but also we will need 4 of the play pods. So the play pods are the size of a computer mouse. There are 2 dials, they're blue and white. The dials are tall and ridged and short and fat, more like a donut, with 1 cord coming out from that. So go ahead and get out 4 of the play pods. So pause your video, make sure you have on your desk your hub and 4 play pods, and then press play again once you have that all ready to go. All right, great. So I have changed my screen. So now we are looking at the CodeJumper app. We have our PowerPoint in the corner showing us what we are going to be looking at, as well as I have a document camera with the CodeJumper components under it so we can see all the pieces. So right now under the document camera, I have the hub and my 4 blue and white play pods. Okay, first things first, we need to connect our hub to the app. So I'm going to turn on the rocker switch and turn it all the way up and wait for the click. And that way we know that it's connected to the app. Okay, I heard the click and the Bluetooth symbol went from no Bluetooth to Bluetooth. Okay, so remember that the hub attaches to the app, and that's how it talks to each other and connects, and so we can hear it and create our programs. So what are we going to be doing today? So what we're going to be doing is actually creating a program about debugging. So we're going to be playing a game called Which One Does Not Belong? So we have a code card here. And if you don't have your print copy or your electronic copy of the code card, press pause and make sure you have your code card debugging next to you. And press play once you have it. All right, so it's code card debugging. Which one doesn't belong? So we have thread 1 is a thread on the hub we'll be using, which is the very far left port. And the sound set is nature. And we'll make sure we have the correct sound set in a moment. And then under the thread, we have our commands. We're telling our program what we want it to do. So our first command is play seagulls, speed 1 times. Play crickets, speed 1 times. Then play thunder, speed 1 times. Play frog, speed 1 times, end thread. So remember that end thread tells us that's the end of our program. Okay, so I'm going to switch my camera back. So we're looking at CodeJumper and we're looking at our code card. So we have everything there and our app. So our code card says that we need to be using the sound set for nature. So I select thread 1. I'm using my mouse, but you can also use your keyboard. And we're going to change it to sound set to be nature. So under the sound sets, I'm going to click nature to scroll down to nature. And I'm going to select OK. So now it says thread 1 nature. All right. So our code card then says play seagulls 1 times speed. So I'm going to take one of my play pods and insert it into the very far left thread, so I know that's the one that I will be using because I changed it to nature. I heard a click, so then I know it's connected. And the short dial, I'm going to turn until I hear seagulls. All right, so that's our seagull sound. So I have 1 line of code written. So our next line of code says play crickets for 1 times speed. So I'm going to insert my next play pod into the first one. So we're creating a sequence. And we heard the click, so we know it's connected. And I'm going to turn the short dial to make sure that it's the sound of crickets. There we go. I heard the sound of crickets. So the third play pod in my sequence is thunder. So I'm going to connect my third play pod to the sequence, and I'm going to turn the dial until I hear thunder. That's thunder. Okay, and the fourth one says play frogs 1 times speed. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the last play pod into my sequence, click, and I'm going to turn it until it says frogs. There we go. So now we need to listen to our program, but before I listen to it run, I'd like to read the code and hear what the code's telling us. So in order to do that, I can press play and stop on the hub, or in the app, I can just select the read button. I'm going to press the play and stop button on the hub.
Thread 1 nature. Play seagulls for 1 times speed. Play crickets for 1 times speed. Play thunder for 1 times speed. Play frogs for 1 times speed. End thread.
All right, and that matches my code card. Seagulls, then crickets, then thunder, then frogs. So now I'm going to play my program. I'm going to run my program. But it's important to trace the code as we're going. So as each sound plays, put your finger on the play pod so you know which play pod is playing which sound. So I'm going to press play and start with my finger on the play pod that is connected directly to the hub. All right, great. So now what we're going to do is debug this. So our question is, which one does not belong? So what I'd like you to do now is pause your video, play your program, several times, and determine which one of these things doesn't belong. And then we'll talk about it when you come back. And if you haven't built your program yet, take as much time as you need. Build the program, play it, think about what does not belong, write it in your computer science journal, and then come back and we'll discuss which one of these does not belong. All right, welcome back. So I'm going to play the program one more time. All right, so let's think about what these things have in common. The sound set is nature, so we know that they all come from nature. That's something they all have in common. Let's think else. What else? We have seagulls, crickets, thunder, and frogs. I think we can find all of those by a lake. We can have seagulls or the shore. We can have seagulls flying overhead. We have crickets in the grass, thunder if it's a storm, and frogs hopping around in the water. Those are all things they have in common. What's something they don't have in common? What do we know about seagulls, crickets, thunder, and frogs that they don't have in common? Well, we know seagull is a bird. We know cricket is a bug. We know thunder is something that happens in nature. It's a weather phenomenon. And we know frogs are also a creature. So I think maybe looking at this, seagulls, crickets, and frogs are all different types of animals. And thunder is not. So that one is what does not belong, because this is a weather phenomenon and the other things are all animals. So let's debug this. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to turn the play pod thunder until we find something that fits, another kind of animal. And if you're not sure which play pod thunder is, play the program again and trace the code until you get to the correct one. So pause for a moment and trace the code, find which play pod is thunder, go through the sounds until you find another animal sound that we don't have here to make your statement true, that these are all animal sounds. Okay, so give yourself a moment, pause the video, and then come back and we'll go through that. All right, welcome back. So let's go through it. After playing the program, we've determined that thunder is the third play pod from when we start at the hub. That first play pod is 1, 2, and then the third one is thunder. So I'm going to turn the dial until we get to a sound that is an animal, but not ones we already have. So here we go. That's a splash, so that's water. Oh, those are birds. We don't have birds in our program yet. So now if I run the program, we have, I'm gonna actually just read the code.
Thread 1 nature. Play seagulls for 1 times speed. Play crickets for 1 times speed. Play birds for 1 times speed. Play frogs for 1 times speed.
All right.
End thread.
So now we know our program has all animal sounds. We're able to debug it and find the right sound that should be there. Nice job, everybody. All right, so now what do we do? Well, let's do a little bit of exploration. So we've created this program in nature around animal sounds. So what I'd like you to do now is create a program on your own, write it down in your computer science journal in the correct way, and then add a bug into it. Change one of the sounds so it doesn't belong in your grouping of sounds, and then challenge a person in your home to find the bug. So in this one, the one we just did, we had animals, and we had one that was not an animal, it was a weather phenomenon. So you can do all water sounds like the waves and the rainfall, and then change something to something different, or find a different sound set, put an error in your program, and see if someone can figure out what the error is. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy code jumpering.